If anyone has spent even half an hour studying China, they won't be surprised by what China is doing to its neighbors. China is a country which has very little resources. Landmass of the country is one of the worst in the world. To feed its population, the communist nation uses agrochemicals in huge amount. Most of them are imported. Regarding chemicals like lithium, cobalt, nickel and many others, it has to depend on Africa and Latin America. The moment these supplies are gone, we are looking at the China of a pre-Deng Xiaoping era. Heck, they do not have the intellectual capability to operate technology that they stole from others in intellectual theft. In those circumstances, the only option left for it is looking towards its neighbors. Even there, the Chinese do not have many options. For instance, they once visited Vietnam in 1979, and the Vietnamese welcome gesture to them was as good as it was to Americans. With the misadventures in the South China Sea, China has further alienated Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei and Taiwan. This further reduces their chances of being successful in conflict with Japan. Additionally, it is due to China's threat that Japan is remilitarizing. That left China with Pakistan, Nepal and India. Now India already shares a stressful tie with Mao's nation. To control India, China has to get Pakistan and Nepal on its side. Pakistan is theirs, no matter how bad it is. Nepal is their final frontier, and that is why it becomes imminent for India to save Himalayan nation from dragon's clutches. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Sabita Mishra and this is TFI Post. It is not a hidden fact that Pushp Kamal Dahal Prachanda, the current Prime Minister of Nepal, is a fan of China. I mean, the guy has treated Mao Zedong as ideal for whole life. When he had started an insurgency, he wanted to bring communism to Nepal. In fact, one of his demands was to do away with the 1950 Treaty of Peace and Friendship with India. There is no reason to assume that he would be pro-India even if he has left his violent tactics. In fact, both Prachanda and China share mutual admiration for each other. Reasons? Maybe both have the same authoritarian genes. Prachanda came to power on 26 December 2022. Very next day, the acting Chinese ambassador gave him a congratulatory gesture. As a gift, the ambassador conveyed to Prachanda that Nepal-China border checkpoints on Rasua, Kerung and Hilsa have been opened after 35 months of COVID-19 related locks. Within days, Prachanda inaugurated an international airport in Pokhara. It is only the third of its kind in Nepal and has been built with $251.96 million of Chinese money. China also announced that it wants to accelerate the development of projects related to the Belt and Road Initiative in the Himalayan nation. If you come to think of this as an aberration and special gesture towards Prachanda, you are wrong. China is one of the largest investors in Nepal, with Chinese companies investing heavily in infrastructure projects such as hydropower, roads and airports. These include construction of the Pokhara International Airport, the Kathmandu Ring Road and the Belt and Road Initiative-linked Trans-Himalayan Multi-Dimensional Connectivity Network. Between 2015 and 2021, China remained the largest source of FDI investment for Nepal. More than investment amount, the places where China is choosing to put its money in Nepal is more concerning. For instance, the Trans-Himalayan Multi-Dimensional Connectivity Network involves a cross-border railway connecting China's Tibet Autonomous Region with Kathmandu. If you analyze it from the historical perspective, China's intentions could not be more clear. Chinese investment is aimed towards its five-finger strategy. It was coined by Mao. Chinese treat Ladakh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim and Arunachal Pradesh as five fingers while Tibet is treated as its palm. The Chinese have always wished to get these regions under its control. By doing that, they would get a grip on any geographical roadblocks coming their way of their aggressive overture towards India, their biggest contestant for supremacy in the Asian continent. Additionally, India has started laying out infrastructure along LAC in an unprecedented way. This is going to further aid the already oft-spoken Northeast states with the rest of India. Being devoid of any relief from insurgent groups in Indian states, that again leaves China with only Bhutan and Nepal. With Bhutan, they're trying to make it big, but with Nepal, they have already done it. Their overture towards Nepal has expanded to the security domain as well. After India's INSAS rifle turned out to be out of date for Nepalese armed forces in 2005, Nepalese army started to hunt for M4s, M16s and other NATO rifles. It was China which jumped in to occupy the place held by India. It took 8 years for an Indian company to break this monopoly. Despite that, it is like a penny in a sea of millions of dollars given by Chinese in the Nepal military. In 2019, China gave rupees 2.5 billion in military aid to Nepal. China also provided military hardware to Nepal and has promised to enhance the capabilities of Nepalese law enforcement agencies, police officers, intelligence agencies, and border management organizations, among others. Both countries also conduct a joint military deal. No points for guessing who benefits more from these drills. Chinese get access to key crinks in armors of Nepalese army and use that to enhance its security diplomacy by promising to fulfill the gaps. Despite all of this, the biggest problem for Chinese in cutting down Nepal's bonhomie with India is that their cultural relation with Bharatvarsh. Nepal and Indian states of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar are highly interlinked, so much so that the borders are open. International marriage between citizens of both countries are commonplace. Relatives stay across the borders. Indian currency works there. Whenever fuel prices go up in India, people living in border areas cross the border to buy cheaper fuel from Nepal. Madhesis in Nepal and Indian along with the Nepal border even speak the same language. Seeing strong support for India on ground, Chinese have been pushing more and more aggressively. Advent of Chinese tourists in Nepal has increased at a staggering pace. In 2019, they comprised more than 14% of total tourists, filling the coffers of the landlocked country with forex reserves. When Jinping visited Nepal in 2019, Nepali Congress Party distributed copies of Jinping's philosophy to its members. On a more grassroots level, China is also promoting Mandarin in the schools of Nepal. It also gives scholarship to 100 Nepali students to study in China. These are clear-cut attempts to eliminate India's cultural influence from the psyche of Nepali people. By promoting Mandarin, Chinese are trying to replace Hindi as a language of second choice, and by giving them scholarship of their own universities, China is trying to cut short the influence of India on future Nepalese children. In addition to that, friendly visits, cultural festivals, film shows, food festivals, sister city connections between China and Nepal have also been burgeoning rise in the last few years. The threat to India is bigger than ever. India shares beti-roti bonds with Nepal. Traditionally, both countries have a shared bonhomie. Both countries have interconnected rivers. Total 5 river basins originate from Nepal and feed India's river system. Tourist exchange for religious purposes is such a prevalent phenomenon that people don't even discuss it. India and Nepal has 3 sister city engagement in the form of Kathmandu Varanasi, Lumbini Bodh Gaya and Janakpur Ayodhya. Situated on India's Himalayan frontier, Nepal along with Bhutan serves as a buffer state against potential aggression from China and acts as a northern borderland. The open border signifies how much India has been trustful of Nepal as a whole, but somehow Nepal has not been able to uphold the full spirit due to its own inherent weakness. Traditionally, Nepal has also been used by anti-India forces to weaken India. These are mainly the terrorist ones having their origin in Pakistan. They used the Himalayan nation as a transit geography towards India. They run stuff like illegal notes racket and money laundering, use safe havens in Nepal for securing their arms, and come to Indian territory by taking advantage of the open border with Nepal. There are chances of Nepal making it to the grey list of FATF due to these reasons. Even grey listing would not result in an advantage for India, simply because Nepal is largely under China's influence. It is advantageous for China if more and more terrorists use Nepal for spreading ruckus in India. One reason why China caught hold of Pakistan was to enhance Pakistan's ability in their attempt to bleed India with 1,000 cuts. Now that Pakistan is itself bleeding, thanks to the Frankenstein monster called Tehreek-e-Taliban, Nepal's importance for China has grown further. Nepal is too important for India to let go. Most of the Chinese influence in its neighbors is dying. They are not that influential in Sri Lanka, or for that matter even Pakistan, as the country itself is on the verge of destruction. Weeding China out of Nepal can keep us in peace for decades to come. If needed, we could also nudge the US and Quad by presenting the security of Nepal as key for throwing out Chinese influence from the Indo-Pacific.